It is a great day to be alive, and I am so thankful for God, Jesus Christ, who lives in us. In this video titled Dreams About Our Political Leaders, I'm going to be sharing a few dreams that I've had as it relates to Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Donald Trump. And before I get started, this has nothing to do with my political opinion or stance. This is just dreams that I'm sharing and things that I've heard in these dreams messages. I don't know what the end result will be. I'm not putting this video out to encourage anybody to vote or change their political stance in any way. This is only about dreams. Some of these dreams I've had and I didn't understand what I was seeing or why I was hearing these things. But later I was able to see the possibility of what these dreams could have meant. In this first dream, I'm just going to call, so who is president? In this dream, which I had probably the beginning of 2023, it was totally out of the blue. Didn't really make sense to me after I woke up. Didn't make sense at all. But anyway, I looked and I saw someone that looked like Kamala Harris, but the person sounded like Nancy Pelosi. And the message that they said was, get over it. I'm your president now. Again, the dream didn't make sense to me at all. Didn't know if something was going to happen to Biden and that would put Kamala Harris in position to say, get over it, I'm your president now. Didn't make sense at all. And so it wasn't until later on this year, whenever we heard about Joe Biden dropping out of the presidential race and then Kamala Harris being endorsed and being the person to run for president now. And so it didn't make sense back then. It didn't make sense back then, but now it's starting to make sense. Again, this is not to say anything about she's going to win the presidency. I'm just sharing what I heard. In the next dream I had, this dream was about Biden. And I remember seeing him walking. He was in a mumbling state. He was mumbling as he was walking. And he was repeating the same mumble over and over again. And his hands were out in front of him. They were kind of shaking a little bit. And he began to walk over to a wall. And on that wall, there was a picture, like a secret opening. And so he went over to the wall and the space opened up. And there was a screen or some kind of computer screen or TV screen. And there was a red button. I saw him push the red button. And there was a lady across the room. And I heard her say, he has doomed us all. In the next dream, I'm calling this Biden getting off the bus. And I had this dream on June 13th, 2024. And in this dream, I was on a school bus and it was almost time for me to get off. And I saw my stop up ahead and I looked back and I saw Joe Biden standing in the aisle holding books in his hand. And his hand was shaking and he was looking confused. And he looked at me and he asked if it was time for him to get off. And I told him, yes, the next stop. I was confused because why are you on the bus with me? Why am I on the bus? But anyway, again, this dream was on June the 13th. And then on July 21st, we heard about President Biden dropping out of the 2024 presidential election and endorses Vice President Kamala Harris for president. This reminded me of that first dream. Get over it. I'm your president now. Again, my thoughts went back to that dream, not to say anything about who's going to win the presidential election, but my mind went back to that dream when I saw this. And I was kind of like, back then I was wondering, how was that going to happen? I thought something was going to happen to Biden, Lord forbid, but that was the only thing that I could think of during that time. And so then when this happened, months later, I began to say, okay, Lord, moving on to the next dream. In this dream that I'm calling the golf course and military hospital. In this dream, I was in a military hospital or personal care, and I knew it was nighttime. I knew that the people that were helping me were on the night shift. And so I was in this room alone, and I was taking notes about Trump. I have no idea why I was taking notes about Trump, but I was writing these notes down. I also knew that the person who would come in the room and check on me that night, if you needed them to know something, you would just write a note and you would leave it, and they would find it and they would put it in your chart, or they would make a note of it to do whatever it is, whatever. And so the person came into the room, and I pretended to be asleep, but I had already written my notes out about Trump to give to the nurse on night duty. And I remember hearing people, some of the nurses or the staff in the hallway, they were kind of loud. They're talking. The person was telling them to be quiet. They were too loud. And so I remember knowing that there were two male nurses that was in the hallway talking too loud. And then the person that came into the room that night to take my notes, it was also a male nurse. And so I pretended to be asleep, and I felt them taking the note out of my hand that I wrote about Trump. In the next scene, instead of being 4 walls of my hospital room, there were 3 walls. And because the 4th wall was missing, I was able to look out, and I saw that I was looking at a golf course. And there and out on the golf course, I saw a man wearing a red Trump hat, or Trump supporter hat. And so the guy stood there on the golf course out in the distance with the red hat on, watching me, and it was extremely creepy. And I knew that I needed to defend myself. And so when he started down the hill, he was walking across his golf course very fast. And so I figured I had a plan. When I would get him in close proximity, I would turn around and hit him with whatever I had there on the counter in my room. But my plan failed, and he got close to me, but I wasn't afraid. And I remember calling out for help and letting them know that I'm not afraid, but this man is in my room, and I'm going to fight him, and I'm going to, I'm not going to let him, hurt me. And so that was basically the end of the dream. And so again, I had this dream on May the 28th. And so after I woke up from this dream, I told my husband, I think that Trump is going to be found guilty. For whatever reason, I just got the sense from this dream that he, something was going to happen to Trump. And during this time, all this with this case was going on. And it just came to me. Trump is going to be found guilty. And then, of course, on May 30th, he was found guilty on all 34 counts. Now, me saying that he was going to be guilty wasn't me believing that he did what he did. It's just the interpretation that I felt I was getting from this dream was telling me that Trump was going to be found guilty. Whether he was right or wrong, the notion that he was going to be found guilty is what I pulled from this dream. And so later on, we know that there was an assassination attempt on Trump, and he ended up going to the hospital. That reminded me of this hospital dream, except for it was me in the hospital bed or in the hospital room instead of Trump. But I was taking notes about him. So I don't know if God was allowing me to see what was going to happen to him without the details of him, an assassination attempt. But the fact that I was writing his name down and I was in a hospital, and then this happened days or weeks later, reminded me of being in that hospital. And then the second assassination attempt, when he was attacked the attack was at his golf course, reminded me of the second part of that dream, when I was seeing this man approaching me very swiftly on coming across a golf course. And so I don't know if in that one dream God was showing me both of these assassination attempts, but back then I didn't understand it. But again, moving forward, I'm able to see these things now, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, I'm glad that Trump is safe, and I pray that God continues to keep him safe, as well as all of our politicians and those who are trying to help govern our government. So we have to just keep them in prayer, keep them lifted up, regardless of whether we think they're right or whether we think they're wrong. It doesn't matter. Keep them lifted up in prayer, because again, they're the governing body for us. And so again, this video is not to try to tamper with anybody's thoughts about how to vote, what to vote. I'm just sharing these dreams. And so time will tell all things. And so just be blessed, be encouraged. And that is all that I have for this video. Until the next one, God bless.